Well, gas prices have dropped slightly since the ceasefire and have continued to drop even with the U.S. partial blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. Now, right now, the current average for a gallon of regular gas across our state is $4.12. It's actually higher than the nationwide average of $4.09 a gallon. Now, both of those are down a couple of cents from earlier this week. Now, the overall increase in prices since the start of the conflict has certainly hit consumers at the pump, but it's also, according to experts, driven up inflation 3.3% year over year this past March. Now, this isn't the first time a conflict in the Middle East has driven up global oil prices and inflation. The 1979 oil crisis, also sparked by a conflict in Iran, led to higher prices, a gas shortage, and inflation peaking at more than 14%. But more than 40 years later, the energy picture in our country looks a lot different. And while higher prices come with obvious drawbacks, there could be some benefits to the U.S. economy. Joining me now with more on that is Mason Hamilton. He's the Vice President of Economics and Research at the American Petroleum Institute, an advocacy organization for the gas and oil industry. Mason, it's good to see you. Let's start here. Even before this conflict, the U.S. was the top oil producer in the world, churning out more than 13 million barrels of oil a day. Now that energy costs are up, that's not exactly great news, but U.S. oil exports are up as well and rising. What kind of long-term impact could that have on the U.S. economy?
Well, as you pointed out, this is not the 1970s, and this is not the 1970s energy policy of the United States, nor is it the 1970s energy markets. The United States is both an active importer and exporter of crude oil. And the benefits of doing that is it allows our system to balance. Not all crude oils are the same. For example, like I could say that we in the United States produce of what would be called the Bud Light of crude, whereas our refineries prefer darker, heavier grades. And so we need to import those heavier grades and export the lighter ones. And the benefit of that is we get a premium to export those grades to the countries that do need them. Now, exporting that crude oil is not sort of something to be concerned about, because the benefit of that is refineries around the world take our crude, make it into products that we use like motor gasoline and diesel, and send it back to us in regions of the country that don't have refineries.
Mason, with the situation at the Strait of Hormuz murky at best at this point, with reports of 121 empty overseas oil tankers turning to the U.S. to fill up, President supporters even referring to this as the U.S. being the world's emergency gas station, is the domestic oil industry prepared to supply the world if necessary, and how could that ultimately benefit our viewers' bottom line?
Well, the oil and natural gas industry in the United States is ready to supply global demand, but there's, of course, infrastructure constraints and limits. Historically, the United States has not exported more than about 5.2 million barrels per day on an individual week. Now, to sustain those high levels will require new infrastructure and sustained price spreads between domestic crude oil and international crude oil. And right now, the United States is getting a lot of phone calls from buyers in the rest of the world saying, hey, do you have any crude for sale? And the answer so far is yes.
All right, certainly an interesting picture that we'll continue to keep an eye on going forward. We do appreciate the perspective here. Mason Hamilton of the American Petroleum Institute. Mason, thank you so much for your time.